Hey everybody, I'm Amanda with DevExpress and welcome to today's webinar, What's New in 15.1 for VCL, presented by DevExpress CTO Julian Bucknall. In this webinar, learn about the new products and features shipping inside our updated VCL subscription. All right, thank you so much for joining us. I will now hand things over to Julian.
Thank you, Amanda. Hi, I'm Julian Bucknall, the CTO at DevExpress, and I'm here today to talk about what's new in DevExpress VCL 15.1. Now, as with most of these presentations, there is some good news and there's some bad news. I'm going to start with the good news. I'm going to lull you all into a happy sense of security and then quickly flash by the bad news. And with that, an overview of what's new in 15.1. First of all, the biggie. The rich text editor is no longer a CTP version as it was in 14.2, but has been fully released for 15.1. You can now use it in production apps without hearing my usual warnings about CTPs in your head as you do so. I'd like to publicly thank everyone who tried it out over the last 6 months and gave us valuable feedback to help us improve it. Now, along with locking it down for this release, we've added a few new features to help your users produce some great rich text documents. We've added table support. There's multi-column support, simple and draft document views. We've added rulers, both horizontal and vertical. There's image sizing, and we've also added some new dialogues to things like font configuration, find and replace, table properties, and so on and so forth. Next, we've added a fun little editor. It's a rating control. It supports things like custom images if you don't like our stars, vertical or horizontal orientation, various fill modes. So you can have whole stars, half stars, or infinite resolution, he said jokingly. Next, there's been one big change for our data analysis type controls, our grids. We've decided to improve the data export engine that deals with spreadsheets. And the only way we could do that in a reasonable amount of time with a reasonable number of resources was to make the spreadsheet control a foundational control in our suites. Now, in more basic terms, that means you'll be getting the spreadsheet control along with our grids. For the full DevExpress suite, yeah, sure, so what, you get it anyway. But for our active grid pack customers, that means you'll be getting the spreadsheet control for free as part of the 15.1 version or later. No price increase, it's just there when you install. So if you have the Express Grid Pack or the Express Quantum Pack, I'd say it's time to break out the champagne. And what do you get for this? Well, obviously, export to XLS and XLSX, and there's also comma-separated variable files and text files. Cell formats are carried over from the grid or treeless pivot grid or vertical grid, whatever you're using. And you can export images as well, should you so desire. Next, a couple of quickie controls as a modern drop-down date editor. This is going to be easier to show rather than describe. A toggle switch, we've updated that as well. Gauges, woo, lots to show here. There's new styles. There's a 3/4 circular type, wide circular look, custom scale captions, the tick mark labels. There's various ways to display them now, and so on. For the spreadsheet itself, I just mentioned the data export facilities, as I just said. We're now supporting outlines, or outlining or grouping of data. There's a better find and replace dialog, for example. The layout control, if you're not using this, I don't know what to say. You should be using this. It's been improved. Drag and drop operations are now much more intuitive, but again, this is one of those things where it's going to be easier to show than to describe. And finally, just for me, we'll finish off with one of my favorite VCL controls. The map now gains inertial scrolling, which is de rigueur for touchscreens. And my new laptop is a touchscreen. It's lovely. Anyway, And now I'm going to show you a slide from my slide deck from 6 months ago for the 14.2 announcement that I presented here on this channel in December last year. So this is a flashback. I predicted it then, and it has come to pass. We have dropped support for Delphi 7 and RAD Studio 2007 with DevExpress VCL 15.1. If you are still using those old IDEs, my advice is still the same. Upgrade to some version of RAD Studio XE and use version 15.1 or later. If you cannot, you must make plans to create a development environment for those old IDEs and continue to use 14.2 with them, whether that's a separate machine or a VM. I mean, for example, I only access Delphi in a VM these days. It's entirely up to you. I do not recommend trying to install both 14.2 and 15.1 on the same machine to try and target different IDEs. Now, we shall continue to issue minor updates to 14.2 for at least the next year, in essence to provide bug fixes and bug fixes only. But after that, DevExpress VCL 14.2, the one that supports Delphi 7 and RAD Studio 2007, will be frozen and no longer maintained. So again, I recommend upgrade or isolate. So, as a reminder, 15.1 is for RAD Studio 2010 or later only. There's no support for Delphi 7 or RAD Studio 2007. Having said all that, there's some more, quote, bad news, unquote. The rich edit control is even more complicated. First of all, there's the easy bit. It's a RAD Studio XE or later only. It does support 32-bit and 64-bit in Delphi, but for C++ Builder, it's only 32-bit. Now let me make that quite clear. In our testing with C++ Builder 64-bit, we discovered we couldn't even compile the rich text editor. Remember, with Delphi, no problem. 32-bit C++ Builder, no problem either. 64-bit C++ Builder, compiler crash. And it doesn't matter which XE version either, it still crashes with the super duper up to the minute XE8 update 1, for example. Now, our further investigation with the compiler error message we got revealed that the issue has been known by Embarcadero for nearly 2 years, with no resolution whatsoever. I have contacted them with the simple example program the team provided me, and that reproduces the issue, only to find out that, yes, they knew about it, and no, they had no fix or workaround. Well, unless you count a workaround that involves us rewriting our code not to use generics anymore. So all I can say at this stage is we'd love for the rich edit control to support 64-bit C++ Builder, but through no fault of our own, it doesn't. Now, when or if Embarcadero fix the issue, you must realize that it will only be for the latest compiler version. They are not going to go back and fix all previous XE versions. And I have no idea which is going to be the latest compiler version either. It might be XE9, for example. Anyway, without further ado, let's see some action. Let me switch over to the demo center here, VCL Demo Center. I'm going to quickly show you some of the new features in our rich text editor. Let me drag it in from the opposite screen here. And, whoops, there it is, there we are. So, standard word processing type control. We support multiple fonts, we support different types of paragraph options as well. So we have bullets, numbered bullets, the ability to indent or outdent, show off paragraph marks and other non-visible marks, justification, so on and so forth. First of all, I'm going to show you some of the new things with regard to columns. So here I'll change this particular document to have 2 columns, for example. So here we have 2-column storyline here. Let's quickly show something like the font dialog. Here we have the new font dialog. Because I've managed to highlight something with multiple fonts, it's just going to basically say, well, which font do you want to use here? I'm a fan of Franklin Gothic. Oh, let's go for Denny. And I don't know, we'll have an underline. We'll have a kind of reddish underline here. And there we go. So new font dialogues. I'm going to do something weird now. In a Charles Dickens story, I'm going to insert a table. Yeah, let's have a table. We're going to have 2 columns, say 5 rows, and boom, there we are. And notice we have the new table tools. We can mess around with this particular table, for example. Change the design, which at the moment means borders, so let's just have outside borders. Oh, I should have highlighted the whole thing, and we'll just have outside borders on this. What many cells? No borders. There we are, and so on and so forth. So you can mess around and obviously type inside the table. So table support is all there. So next, I want to show off the rating control. So no, I don't want to save any documents there, and we'll jump over to the grid and the data editors demo here. So the rating control is this star thing, so where you can basically rate this particular whatever it is. This happens to be a grid showing as a card view about cars. So I prefer half precision, 5, let's make it 6 items for fun, and there we can see I can select up to half, so 3.5 there. You can also change the images you're going to use, so we'll change them to thumbs ups, and again we have exactly the same kind of functionality going on here. So that's the rating control, the new rating control. Next I'm going to show you about something about the data export facilities. Here we have a fairly complicated looking grid. We're doing some summaries, we've got some data here, and so on and so forth. What I'm going to do is I'm going to export it to Excel. As you see, I've been testing this already, and I'll replace the one I have, and it's going to ask me whether I want to open it up in Excel, so I'll say yes, and here comes Excel. And the thing I want to show you here about this particular export facility is how easy it was, and so on and so forth. Let me just grow these columns a little bit so you can see what's going on, especially this column here. So notice in the original grid, the payment type, we're not exporting the images, but we are setting the text to be right adjusted. And notice the text is right adjusted in the exported Excel spreadsheet. Also notice the payment amount over here is currency with a $ and 2 decimal places. Lo and behold, in the exported XLSX file, I can't even say XLSX file, the cell format again is currency with 2 decimal places. So with this new data export facility using our spreadsheet, the grid has become more full-featured, especially with interaction with people using Excel, for example, or even our own spreadsheet. So I don't particularly want to save that. Let's quickly show you the jump down here in place editors. The thing I want to show you here is the new data editor, the ability to select a date using this very animated and intuitive animated intuitive calendar that we have here. So what I'm going to do is, I joined DevExpress in 2006. It was in March, and it was March the 15th. See how easy it is to select a particular date rather than, say, having to work it out by typing it in, or was it last Sunday or something like that? Yeah, what was last Sunday? Let me see. We go over to 2015, and we are in June, and last Sunday was the 23rd today. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. 23rd today, so last Sunday was the 21st. So there we go. The toggle switch is kind of a fun. We haven't got it incorporated into our main demo yet. So what I'm going to do is quickly show you the toggle switch as it exists. Let me close that one down. So what this is, it's a simple on-off type switch. It's like a checkbox, but it's more visual, shall we say. And you can see the ability to see the labels. You can have text within the toggle switch, or you can have images, for example. So here we have tick for yes and cross for no. Those images can appear as captions, and so on and so forth. There's lots of different options you can use with a toggle switch. And the other thing about it is obviously for those users who have touchscreens, I don't have a touchscreen on this particular machine, but they are big targets. You can hit them with your fingers and toggle away. So that was the toggle switch demo. What else do I want to look at now? Oh, gauges. Yes, gauge controls. Here's the gauge control features demo. So the first thing we've added are these 3/4 or 3/4 circular gauges. So just to remind you, there's the full circular, the half circular. These were there before, the quarter, and now we have 3/4 or 3/4. And we have wide circular gauges for those cases when you need that kind of look and feel. What I'm going to show you now, we have gauge styles. We've added a few new gauge styles. As you can see, we have an awful lot of gauge styles now for gauges. The new ones are Clever. We have Cosmic. We have my favorite, which is called Eco. I like the green needle and all that kind of stuff. There's Red. There's, where are we? Shining Dark. And Silver Blur. Which, I must admit, looks pretty good. But my favorite is Eco. There we go. Animation, new feature, we can animate your needles to deal with changes in the value that they're representing. There are various different transition effects or easing effects to add to your animations. Bounce is kind of fun to begin with and gets a little annoying, perhaps. Sine, I like sine. It's got this kind of rapid movement at the ends and then smooth in the middle kind of thing. So, play around with the various effects and see which ones you like. Next is, for circular gauges, we've been adding some more options to the tick mark labels. So at the moment, we're showing the tick marks, or the labels of the tick marks, I should say, as being left to right. So we can see them basically on a circle. It doesn't quite work with quarters, maybe with the 3/4 or the full circular gauges, circular outwards, and the radial. I kind of like radial. That's kind of fun too. So different tick mark orientations. Let's move that out of the way. The spreadsheet control, we've already talked about the data export facilities for the grids. Now let's have a quick look at the spreadsheet control itself. And here it comes. As I said, the main feature here that we've added is the ability to have outlines, so you can do some kind of analysis with your data. Here we're showing outlines based upon various states here, and we can collapse all those states just to show the quarterly totals, and then we can collapse them all together to get a grand total. The interesting thing about this is, let me just open up a couple of these, and then I'm going to export this, or not even export it, it's just going to be saved as an XLSX file. So let's save this as not a CSV. We'll go to an Excel workbook. I use test, for example. We'll save that. Yes, I'm going to replace it. So we're back to our demo over here. Let me just bring up Excel now. And I'm going to open that exact same document. It's this one here. And notice what several things here. One is, yes, the formatting is the same for everything. But notice I had 2 groups open and 2 groups closed, and lo and behold, in the exported XLS, not the exported, saved XLSX file, I have 2 groups open and 2 groups closed. So that's A, outlining is a great feature anyway, and B, the ability to save that as part of the Excel workbook or worksheet is also impressive. No, I don't want to save that. Okay, so we're back at the demo here. Next thing I want to show you is the find and replace feature. So here I am in a spreadsheet, and I'm going to search for desktop. How about that? And we have various options you can look. I'm going to look within the sheet by rows. I can just look in formulas as well as values, or just values, and so on and so forth. So let's find them all. What happens is we get this nice little list showing where those items have been found. Actually, I should do this. I should open everything up. There we go. Let me find again. Find all. There we go. And notice as I go through this list, the cell, the active cell, the current cell changes to show the matched bit of text. And if I do a replace, so let's replace desktop with a laptop, if I can spell right, and I'm going to replace them all. It tells me 8 replacements, yep, and again it shows me where those changes have been made. So find and replace dialog, much improved, and the outline feature for the spreadsheet, a very great addition. Next up, let's quickly look at the Layout Manager. This will be the last little demo I have for today. So the Layout Manager, as I say, it's just the ideal way to create data entry forms. I mean, back in the day, yes, I've done my bit of trying to create forms which look nice and all the rest of it, but with the layout control, you're going to save so much time, you know, lining up labels, lining up, you know, the input boxes and all this kind of stuff. Let me just show you the drag and drop feature now. So let's grab this layout field here, and as you see, as I move around, the arrows basically are showing me what's going to happen, where it's going to land, and gives me a more precise indication of what's going on. If I drop it, notice when I do drop it, there is a little window that appears kind of while I'm hovering over the thing I just dropped, the field I just dropped. It gives me various options here to improve the alignment of the field I just dropped. So we have horizontal alignment here and vertical alignment here. So actually, let's drag it over here somewhere. Here we are. So I want it left adjusted here, or maybe I just want it right adjusted within my particular pane here, or maybe the whole lot, and so on. So it's a lot easier to use. It's a lot more intuitive, and remember, with the layout control, you can actually expose this feature to your end users so that they can themselves reorder their forms and save the layout to suit them, rather than you dictating what your users see and so on. So that's the last thing I want to show you today. And so with that, it's question time. So Amanda. And please note I filled in some answers already. I don't know whether these questions have come up. So first of all, no, we are not actively working on any form of FireMonkey support. Next one is please get off Rad Studio 2010. It should be obvious it'll be the next version we shall consider dropping in the near future. Yeah, possibly move further up the XE upgrade path too, just in case. And 64-bit C++ build, just stay off it for now. So, Amanda,
hey,
what
Julian.
kind of questions have we got?
We've got two questions that have popped up here from Paul. Okay. Does the RTF editor support HTML?
No, it's RTF only at the moment. I'm sure. Let me have a quick look. Let me start up the app again. It's just see what we can save it as. So here's the demo. Oops. Wake up demo. There we go. So I can say File, Save As. What can I save it as? Let's see if I do. Yeah, RTF or text. So no, not at the moment.
Okay. And then how can we feed the rich edit control with a text blob from database fields and save the result when finished?
To be honest, that's going to be a question for support. I don't know right off the top of my head.
The team says no data-aware support at the moment.
Okay, no data-aware support at the moment.
Let's see, from Mike. Release date for this, specifically the RTF tool.
Are you ready? Jump over. It's been released! If you go down to the DevExpress.com, the download center, log in, and you'll find that version 15.1.2 has been released today. So it's there. Go download it. Have fun. Enjoy.
From Ulysses, how about the performance on a pivot grid?
We have done improvements with the pivot grid performance. Let me quickly, I don't know whether I've got a document here that describes what performance improvements we have. I don't have it on me right this very moment, but there have been improvements with the pivot grid, yes. Improvements with the performance of the pivot grid, yes.
Great. And then from Bradley, I take it that it fully supports Delphi 64-bit such as it is.
Yes, it does. Delphi 64-bit is fine. 32-bit is fine. It's just, for some reason, the C++ builder compiler has to compile both C++ and Delphi. And it's the 64-bit version of the C++ builder compiler which, with Delphi generics, just has issues. And that's all I can really point to. It's just a mess, right? I was surprised when the team told me about this, and then I was chatting with the Embarcadero people, and yeah, C++ builder 64-bit. The Delphi compiling bit just doesn't work very well. There we go. What can I say?
Okay. All right, from John, this is a what could be coming in the next release question. Any plans to include a PDF file viewer in the upcoming version?
It's one of those things I've said in the past, probably over the last couple of years, is whenever we release one of these major releases for the VCL component set, I always say things like, have a look at the WinForms component set, and you'll see ideas that we're going to be looking at for our next major release with VCL. So PDF is one of those things. PDF is a little difficult. We have a dedicated team for PDF. It's kind of complicated under the hood. So although we could quote, port the code over from C# to Delphi, there are various nuances with regard to the PDF format itself that we still haven't got sorted out in .NET land. for example, just off the top of my head, with PDF, there are various different ways to define color sets, palettes, if you like, and I think we support like 2 of them. It's things like that which, you know, people always produce this PDF that goes, well, I've just created this PDF and you can't view it, and so on and so forth. So PDF viewer, I'd like to do it, sure. We haven't actually discussed with the team what we're going to do for 15.2 yet. Obviously, we're going to be enhancing the spreadsheet, we're going to be enhancing the rich text editor, and those major controls, you know, things like the grid and so on and so forth. But as for major new controls, still got to discuss it with the VCL team, see what we're going to be doing next. And poor guys, they've been working hard for the last 2-3 weeks trying to get everything ready for 15.1, so give them a break.
All right, that is all the questions.
Okay, that's cool. So thanks, everybody. Here's my details, julianb@devexpress.com. That's my email address. @JMBucknall is my Twitter handle. If you want to have a chat, do please send me an email. If you get too detailed, I will have to pass it on to the team or to the support team anyway. So there's the support email address, support@devexpress.com. I'd love to hear from you, see what feedback you have for what's new in 15.1 and what you'd like to see in 15.2. So thanks very much, everybody, and until next time.
Awesome. Thank you, Julian. All right, everybody, today's webinar will be available later on our DevExpress YouTube channel for you to rewatch at your leisure. The link is posted in the chat box. And of course, like Julian mentioned, you can download VCL 15.1 right now. It is available in your download manager. And that is it for this one. Thank you so much to Julian. Thank you all for joining us. And of course, thank you for choosing DevExpress. Bye-bye.